He stood beneath the spotlight with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Jim, beloved member of BTS, had just been announced the winner of the Hallyu Special Award at the 34th Seoul Music Awards. The applause thundered, camera flashes burst like fireworks, and his name echoed through the massive Inspire Arena as if the very walls were celebrating him. He bowed with practiced grace, holding the shimmering trophy, surrounded by his peers and the deafening cheer of thousands. Yet, beneath all the brilliance of the night, something was missing. Someone was missing, his mother. She wasn't there in the front row. She wasn't backstage. She wasn't waiting for him with a bouquet of flowers or a tearful embrace. For fans who followed Jim's journey for over a decade, her absence wasn't just an empty seat, it was a void. There was no public announcement, no warning. But those who knew him, even just through the lens of cameras and song lyrics, noticed it the moment he stepped up to the microphone. His voice, usually steady, warm, practiced, quivered just slightly, like the air before a storm. "Thank you to Army, to my brothers," he began, the words familiar, then he paused. Just long enough for the world to notice. Long enough for silence to settle like dust. "And, to someone who should have been here tonight," he said, looking out into the dazzling sea of light, "who's always been there, whether I won or not, I know you're watching, Yama. And I know you're proud of me." The crowd cheered, but those closest to the stage said they saw it, his fingers tightening slightly around the trophy, his gaze dropping for half a second. Backstage reports confirmed it later. His mother had planned to attend. Her dress was ready, a soft lavender hanbok-style piece she'd chosen with quiet excitement. Staff had prepared her seat. But 2 days before the ceremony, she called. No fanfare. No drama. She simply cancelled. She didn't want to worry anyone, one staff member said. She just said, "Tell him to shine. That's all I want." The truth, whispered among close friends and only later shared on community forums, was that she had fallen ill. Not gravely, but seriously enough that her doctor advised against travel. The long journey from Busan to Seoul, the loud crowds, the lights, the stress, it would have been too much. And Jim knew. He knew days before. And still, he stood on that stage and smiled. This award wasn't just another trophy, it was his first major solo honor since completing his military service. His mother had once told reporters it was a moment she dreamed of witnessing in person. And now, when it finally arrived, she watched from a bed, the screen of her phone glowing softly in the dark. That it's often said Jim's mother was his quiet anchor. In the early years of BTS, when he doubted his place, she was the one who took midnight trains to bring him food and extra socks. When he collapsed on stage from exhaustion, she held him without saying a word. And she once told him, "You don't need to be famous. You just need to be well." But now he was famous. Wildly. Universally. And somehow, heartbreakingly, not completely whole. What the cameras didn't show was what happened after the ceremony. One staff member said Jim returned to his dressing room, removed his stage jacket, and just sat. No tears. Just silence. Then he made a call. "Hi, Yama," he said, his voice softer than a whisper. "Did you see it?" There was a pause. Then he smiled. "A real one. I'll come home soon." That moment, quiet as it was, fractured something in the hearts of fans. It reminded them that behind the polished image, behind the idol millions adored, was a son who, in the height of his glory, only wanted to go home, and that's exactly what he did, without alerting the press, without a manager in tow, without posting on social media. Jim left Seoul that very night. A single overnight bag. His award in a plain black case. Witnesses said he boarded a late train, wearing a white mask and a cap pulled low, blending in with ordinary passengers. The city lights gave way to the dark countryside, and by the time the train reached Busan, dawn was just beginning to brush the sky. No fanfare greeted him. Just the soft click of a door unlocking. His mother was waiting. No makeup. No stage-ready look. Just her and the boy she hadn't held in months. He didn't say anything at first. He simply stepped forward and placed the award in her hands. "It's yours more than mine," he said. She looked down at it, fingers trembling. No, Jemina. You carried it. You paid the price. But Jim shook his head. He remembered the countless mornings she worked shifts at the local clinic to pay for his dance lessons. The way she'd say, "I'm fine," even when exhaustion was written in her eyes. So he knelt, this man idolized by millions, and said, "If you're not there, it feels like no one is." They stayed like that, just the two of them, in a moment no camera would ever catch. Neighbors reported that their apartment lights didn't go off until well after sunrise. Some say they cooked breakfast together. Others said they simply sat and drank tea in silence. What matters is that he didn't return to Seoul that day. Or the next. HYBE released a short statement, "Jim is spending personal time with family. We thank fans for their understanding." And this time, no one was upset. Not fans. Not the media. Everyone understood. Photos of the award ceremony continued to circulate, but they were now accompanied by new stories. Not just of his victory, but of what came after. A son choosing quiet over celebration. Love over lights. On the third night, something new appeared, a post on his personal page. No photo. Just text, "She's okay now. We watched the speech together. She laughed when I cried. Thank you for loving me in ways that reach the people I love most." The comments section didn't explode with emojis. This time, it filled slowly with quiet gratitude. "We're so proud of you, Jim. Go rest. We'll wait. You brought the award home." Soon, a wave of fan letters began, a small campaign titled "For Jim's Mom." Hundreds of handwritten notes, art pieces, and stories flooded in. Not about concerts or autographs, but about missed milestones, sick parents, and long-distance love. One sketch went viral, a mother sitting on the floor in a dark room, watching a blurry TV as her son stood beneath golden lights. Somewhere in Busan, Jim's mother saw that sketch, and she cried, and then, as if to put a final punctuation mark on this quiet saga, a letter appeared on BTS's official fan cafe, scanned and handwritten by Jim himself. "When I was younger," it read, "I thought winning meant people clapping. Now I know it means giving happiness to the ones who never asked for anything in return. I wanted her to be there. But maybe she didn't need to be. Everything I said that night, I've said to her 1,000 times in my heart. I'm just grateful I got to say it out loud. Thank you for letting me bring this moment back to her. I hope I made you proud too." At the bottom, just one line, written in English, "To all the mothers who couldn't be there, you were never absent." That single sentence, shared across millions of screens, tattooed on arms, printed on banners, became more than a quote. It became a truth that in the end, Jim's greatest award that night wasn't the trophy in his hands. It was the quiet sound of teacups clinking at dawn. It was love, unseen but ever present. It was the knowledge that no matter how high he flies, he never forgets where he came from, or who lifted him there.